Hello everyone, this is Marco and welcome back to my channel. Today is the release day of my brand new male Tyrannosaurus model kit. This is the first ever model kit I have designed and I'm really proud of this one. I've got a dough in the works as well, so stay tuned. These model kits are 1/18 scale roughly, so in the same size range as the Mattel figures. But let's have a look at the pieces. So it comes in 7 different parts. We have the main body part, which is mainly the torso, the thighs, and part of the arms. Then we have the head and the neck. As you can see, they connect with those keys. The right leg and the left leg, they are easily identifiable because of the dew claws. Also, the left leg has the Marco Makes logo under the foot. Then there's the tail. It's nice and curvy and there's a key there so you can insert it into the body. And lastly, the 2 arms. I'll be using super glue and activator to connect the parts together. First things first, I'll be gluing the head onto the body. So in this case, I'm applying the super glue on the body part by the neck. I'm adding a thin layer of super glue all over it and spreading it nicely and evenly. Then I grabbed the head and then positioned it in place. I held it together for a couple of seconds and then I sprayed activator on the sides and held it for another minute. Next, I'm gluing on the tail. I'm doing the same exact procedure, but this time on the other end of the body. Once I've covered the whole end evenly, I connected the parts. And then I held them together for a few seconds. Once happy with the positioning, I sprayed activator. Next, I did the legs. I started with the left leg, I applied the super glue on the seams, and I spread it across the surface. I recommend you use medium to high viscosity super glue. Then I grabbed the leg, and I held it firmly in place, applying some pressure. I repeated the same exact procedure with the other leg. Once you get your model kit, you can always come back to this video and use it as a tutorial, as I'm showing you how to connect the parts, how to fill in the seams too, and how to paint your figure. Of course, you can paint your figure however you like, but if you want to make it look like the buck, you can use this video as a tutorial. Lastly, I glued in the arms. To help you insert the arms properly, I recommend you widen the peg holes a little bit with a knife. Once everything slides in properly, we can apply the glue on the seams and in the hole, and then insert the arm and hold it in place. I then sprayed it with activator, and I repeated the whole process with the other arm too. Next, our good old friend Milliput is coming to the rescue. This will help us fill in any kind of seams. Don't worry, it is normal to have some seam lines exposed, as it's a very common thing with any model kit. So once we've opened the packet, we can grab 2 parts and mix them together. This will activate the chemical reaction between the parts, and in about an hour's time, the Milliput will have solidified, rock solid. So within that window, we want to use it and apply it into our seams. So I grabbed a piece of Milliput, rolled it in my fingers, and then squished it into the seams. I then removed any kind of excess. When handling Milliput, I recommend you use gloves, as it can prevent any type of allergic reaction. Luckily, I don't have any kind of allergic reaction to Milliput, but I do have an allergic reaction to latex gloves, which is quite ironic. Milliput is smoothable with water, so if you like, you can grab a glass of water, dip a paintbrush in it, and then smooth it out. I'm using the back end of the paintbrush too to press in the Milliput a bit more, and then I keep smoothing it out with a brush. Make sure you don't use any of your fancy paintbrushes because it might ruin your paintbrush when using it with Milliput. I always have a set of brushes dedicated to Milliput smoothing. So once one seam is filled in, you can move on to the next one until all the seams have been filled. Oh, I also forgot to mention that this model kit will be available as soon as this video premiere ends, and we do plan to keep them up onto my store all the time. I'd like to point out that one dinosaur takes about 24 hours to print, so it does take quite a while. And if we do get a lot of orders, it might take a bit longer for us to complete the orders. So yeah, it might take a little longer to get to you than expected. Also, my mate Alex is a printing ninja. He's perfected everything in this area, and he does put a ton of work into what he produces. So there we go, this is the model kit assembled and filled in. At this stage, I recommend you just have a look at it all, make sure everything lines up properly and everything looks good, and when you're ready, you can prime the figure. I wasn't able to prime mine because when priming, it involves spraying a lot of paint, and I don't have a dedicated area for that. So I'm just going ahead and painting it straight away. So I mixed this nice green as a base color, with acrylic paints. I left the links in the description so you can get these acrylic paints too. So I mixed this green using the style guide as reference and applied it throughout the whole body, with the exception of the underbelly. I then smoothed it out at the edges with a colourless wet paintbrush. I repeated this process until the top half of this whole figure was covered. I'm making sure the paint goes in every single skin fold and every single bit of texture. Once the first layer dried, I went over it a couple more times. As you can see, I also added a thin layer of green on the bottom jaw, and then I used that colourless wet brush to blend in the edges. Next, I mixed this dark brown and applied it all over the back of the figure. Again, I used the wet brush to blend in the edges. As you can see, I've applied a bit of brown on the thigh, but I'm also adding it a bit on the arm and on the shoulders. As you can see here, I'm adding some brown on the feet too. Then with a smaller paintbrush, I applied that same brown to make some shading and some patterns on the snout, alternating between that brown brush and a colourless wet one to blend in the edges. Then I mixed some light pink and applied it on the belly, making sure the colour goes in all the little grooves, like skin folds and texture. Then I blended in the pink with some yellow, and of course my colourless wet brush. After having done that on the tail and the neck, I did it on the bottom jaw and also on the thighs. I used the same colours to make some highlights on the snout. Then I applied a dark red wash on the feet. Next, it's time to do the patterns. First, I did the yellow parts. And then I added the black patterns in later. These patterns are quite unique. They're quite stripy looking, but also quite marbly at the same time. I used the style guide as reference. I used that same color to do all the stripes on the face, all the dots and all the patterns. Then I used a red wash and applied it inside the mouth. made a dark brown wash and applied it all over the underbelly. Once it was completely dry, I added some dry brushing with some off-white. With the combination of the wash and the dry brushing, it really brings out all of that nice scale detail. Then I mixed a grey colour and dry brushed it over the rest of the body, including the head. Then I mixed some off-white with some yellow and some white and painted in the teeth. While that was drying, I used some yellow and painted in the eyes. I then used a very orangey brown around the edges of the eye. I painted in the pupil with some black. Since the pupil is very small, I used a toothpick and refined the outline of the eye with some black. Next, I painted in the claws with some black. Then I added a brown wash on the teeth. Then I painted in all the scars and cuts on its muzzle. Dry brushing some grey on the claws is always a great idea. Now the painting process is complete, I sealed everything up with this satin lacquer. And ladies and gentlemen, here is the finished product. The male Tyrannosaurus Rex model kit is now assembled and painted. I hope you found this video useful, and I hope you have as much fun assembling and painting this figure as I did. I put a ton of effort in sculpting this figure for everyone, and so did my mate Alex printing all of these too. Again, I just want to remind everyone that this kit will be available today, as soon as this video ends, so very soon. You'll find a link to my Etsy shop in the description. And stay tuned for some more model kits coming soon. We have a doe in the works, as well as a big predator with a sail. You know which one I mean. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. I would like to give a massive thank you to all of my Patreons. Seriously guys, your support really does mean the world to me, as it helps me do what I love for you. You help me buy materials, and most of all, you give me a helping hand with improving the quality of the content of my videos. Even if it's just a small donation, every little helps.